The recording is going. Oh, let me mute. Oh, does anybody have anything they wanted to share before I mute? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and mute. Okay. So thank you all for popping on last minute. I'm glad I remembered to do the text. I got so sidetracked today, and this week is crazy. And everything that I have been reading about this moon period that we're in, because it's a complete time period. It's not just one thing with this moon. But I'm trying to remember what I had put in the initial thing the other day. I didn't even put a whole moon announcement. I put it on the thing about placement of bed, things for sleeping the other day. And I hope that y'all found that similar. I actually rearranged my entire bedroom the other day. I had to flip my bed from north to south. The other way I was going to do east to west. And then I was reading a couple things that said if your head is facing to the south, it's actually better because it puts you on the polar axis rather than east to west. But of course, it depends on which Ayurvedic principle you're dealing with. But so far, I've had a couple of nights sleeping with that, and I'm hoping it's lining me up better and with my electromagnetic field to try to clear and do. Because I mean, we certainly need to do everything we possibly can just to try to balance ourselves out with all this energy, because it's really very intense. And the way that people talk about what we're doing, I think, is very pertinent, with regards to the energy that's hitting. And let me see, I'm trying to remember some of the highlights of what people wrote. My mind is so scattered. Well, it's fine. It's in my head, and spirit's going to just put out what needs to be put out. That's the way this always works. So, okay. So here we are. This is a Pisces new moon, and it's at 9 degrees Pisces. Yeah. So they talk about 9 being a completion number, and it's also the sign where everything else is happening right now. The nodes of our emotional body have just moved into Pisces for 18 months. Neptune and Saturn are just right close, and Venus and Mercury are about to retrograde. They're both in Aries, about to come back into that during this eclipse series coming up. And the way the moon cycles work, for those that may not remember it, but this particular new moon opens up a 6-week portal. Have 2 weeks before the first eclipse, then the 2 weeks between the two eclipses, and then a final 2 weeks before a last moon that closes it out. So you really have a 6-week window of working with the energy, while there's just the eclipse energy is for 2 concentrated weeks, but it really is a 6-week pattern. And this moon really is opening up the whole thing and setting it all in motion. And so it's no coincidence that Mercury and Venus are going retrograde right after this moon. So it's happening at the same time. The pertinence of Mercury and Venus both going retrograde, those 2 personal planets, and the fact they're doing it together is taking our communication, how we project ourselves into the world, communicate with our family, friends, all these kinds of things. Those are front and center as usual, but it also, with Venus retrograding, it's everything we love, what we value, how it's creative energy. More or less it becomes like the divine feminine in the personal sense, whereas Mars is more of the masculine energy. But so we're really being taken in. Of course, it's going back into Pisces, and Pisces is the deepest part of our religious, or actually more frankly, the spiritual essence of who we are. And it's really taking us into what I've said before. I mean, I feel like it's the Bardo state. The Bardo state is that place where when we go through physical death, we have to go in and recapitulate our lifetimes. And I think we're doing that all right now. just as a dynamic. And and I think this is really going to take us to clean out everything. And if you look at the external world in form, it's very indicative. And again, just to reiterate, Lilith going back in Scorpio and Libra, oscillating back and forth. It's unearthing tons of secrets, personally, collectively. You may find that you have things in your own personal life. You may have some skeletons locked up in there somewhere. They're going to fall out. Things with your family, friends, business, it doesn't matter. It's every aspect of life. Nothing can stay hidden anymore. So it leads us into a transparency level that we've not gone into in a very long time. And so it really is holding our feet to the fire as far as leading life through our deepest authenticity. This portal is also going to bring a lot of physical death. I keep thinking people that have been on the runway in my own life are going to be leaving at different points, because sometimes they feel like they're really at the end of life path, and they are in certain extents, but people are still hanging on, and part of it is that they aren't ready to go for many reasons, and everybody certainly goes in their own timetable according to the soul contract. So, but it really is, it's challenging. It's taking us into just cutting through the deepest parts of the places we never wanted to go to. It's kind of like when Jude used to take me into my core and drag me kicking and screaming into, what I thought that meant for me, and dealing with personal, emotional baggage and ancestral crap and whatever. We never want to go do that work as a general rule. We may say we do in our mind, but it's like the heart really wants to, but there's all these blocks that keep us from going into it. But we really are in a place where we can't deny going into those places, because we cannot create in the highest potential until we do of what we're doing. Again, that's going to look very unique for everybody on the planet. And just a reminder, all 8 billion plus people have their soul contracts, and they're doing exactly what they're supposed to do. And I think that's the hardest thing for people to know when they look at the external world of politics playing out right now, especially in the United States, but it's happening in the other countries too. I mean, there's even posts now on Facebook they're talking about, they're questioning whether Germany is going back into a fascist Nazi regime, because people are, voting for certain things that, used to be held true in that. But we're really cleaning out humanity on the vast global scale. So you're going to continue to see things that they're going to be shocking. They're going to be, in many ways, revelatory, things we wouldn't have thought of before, things that have been hidden and done behind our backs for a long time. Again, another theme that's going to come up here, and I'm constantly being taken into this on a lot of levels, is what is betrayal. And so please do keep that in your heart when you're looking at something in the external world that's happening, and you're trying to perceive why something has happened. Don't try to place a value onto it, but do sit in if it's either a government, maybe somebody in your business, family, friends, whatever. If you get anything that comes up and you feel betrayed, go in and ask yourself who betrayed who. Because at some point we made the conscious choice to partner with whatever we've partnered with. It can be a spouse, your children, of course, that's karmic inheritance and ancestral inheritances that we work with. And you don't get out of that. I mean, you can certainly walk away from family or friends or whoever that cannot respect boundaries and don't want to step up to the plate, to be the highest potential of human. Certainly, and we have to take our power and do things like that. We don't have to be in a judgment, but at the same time, we have to have fierce boundaries right now. And it really is going to put all of us into a deep set of choice points. That's one of the biggest things that all the astrologers are talking about is choice points. And the eclipses are always choice points, but this one, and again, this is bigger than the April 8th eclipse energy during that time period. That's when we started the telecalls last year. And we had a lot of people pop in then because it was a big energy shift. But this one is bigger because of the fact it's happening at the alpha omega point of Pisces and Aries. And it's going to feel like a seesaw going back and forth between realities. And depending on where you are in the way you're perceiving reality and how you're working with things, I think it's going to be how you work with this energy. And again, this does not have to be bad. We are invited to not always project a value of good or bad or even comparison. We really want to let comparison go. Just because something's happening with your neighbor or family, friends, business, whoever, it doesn't matter who the other is, it does not mean that that's going to be something happening for you. Again, it's where everyone is in the progression of your own particular soul at that point of time. At the same time, we are being asked to participate in our reality to the extent that we can. I mean, a lot of people, laugh and say, "Oh, just go, put your head in the sand over here, just, have a popcorn and some Coke and watch the movie play out." And in one sense, that is true. While at the same time, we're also here. We're in the world, so we're in the world, but not of the world. And we do change our reality around us because of our actual participation in actuating in our own life. That doesn't necessarily mean that you're participating in group functions necessarily, because if those group functions put a limitation on you or create a dynamic where you can't be in your highest expression, then obviously it's going to be something that you're not going to want to participate in. So we're really coming down to core refinement. It's like your heart may draw you into something initially, something may get your attention. And again, this is happening because of the Mercury and Venus retrogrades. They're really putting us through, to me, when I feel into all this, it's almost like a PhD dissertation. We're all literally at that doctorate level. We're going to go into our highest clearing and capacity, and also testing with where we are in the soul progression. So if you're always staying deeply in your heart, and it doesn't matter what's happening, it doesn't matter the family dynamic, the business dynamic, it's all a reflection of who you are as far as your reaction. We do not want to be in reaction to anything. I don't care if Donald Trump's doing this. I don't care if Putin's doing this. It doesn't matter who out there is doing anything, or even on your personal level. You may have a neighbor that's aggravating you. You may have a business associate that's being extra, peculiar about something. The main thing to note is yourself. Everything has to be brought back to us. We do not want to be in reaction to the external world of form. That's really what we're giving up. It doesn't mean that you still don't attend whatever situation you're in. You also have conscious choice, though, in how you're going to attend something or choose to just be in presence of. And that's something sometimes we don't think we have as an option. We think we always have to take an action. In many circumstances that you're in, action will be required. Either something that's going to affect you personally, or where you're going at, with something in your own life, or action will be required just as a prerequisite to get from point A to point B. As much as you can, though, the astrologers are talking about, because of the Mercury retrograde, the Venus retrograde, you don't, from this point forward for about, actually, I would say Venus doesn't clear, let me see, she comes back out of retrograde April the 12th. She's not going to clear that shadow until, I think, the end of May. So basically for the next 3 months, it's going to be a very interesting relationship crucible we're in. So let's just say that. But it gets relationship to everything. So I don't want to limit that in any way to just a personal relationship, with a spouse or parents or kids or whatever. But it's every relationship, and most importantly, it's our relationship to the all that is, to Mother, Father, God, to Spirit, to our higher being, because again, there's no separation. So we're being asked to go into the highest potentiality of awareness. Now, I've said this before in different ones, and it really remains true. As we go into more self-awareness, we're invited to be in that place of precipitation. What is that moment before we create a thought, or we create the impetus to go into an action? We want to stay as pristinely available to Spirit, to work with Spirit in creating our reality, because the more we are, the more Spirit can give us a higher potential, because we're in that space. Again, everything's a frequency. Now, these next 6 weeks are going to really take us into how we internalize what we're feeling and what we're thinking. And for some people, that's still going to be really hard if you don't have like a meditative, practice in your own life where you daily sit back and take 15 minutes in the morning, or have some sort of routine for yourself where you just get still and go into your heart. Something that really lets you focus and ground yourself before going out and creating in the world. And so the purpose of it all is to really give us one last time to do this before going into the heavy chaos that's going to start with the summer and then going into next year. Because we're going to have Neptune and Saturn going back and forth between Aries and Pisces, which is the alpha mega point. So imagine that you were being born and then reborn again and going through death and rebirth, because that's really kind of what it is. Aries is the beginning of everything. Pisces is the end of everything. So as Neptune, the dream, Saturn, the work we come here to do, keeps going between those points, it's almost like we're dying to ourselves through the version of Saturn, but we're also dying to the version of Neptune, which is delusion and illusions, and how we work with Spirit to create reality. Saturn, as it's going through, it's dissolving time. Saturn is the Lord of time, and how we experience ourselves through the time-space continuum, but also through multidimensional awareness, through all the timetables, as well as the progression of the soul going into the monad. So the monad is really just your higher expression once you've acclimated and worked in all of the other lifetimes. And so this is really a big deal. I mean, I've talked about big deals before. The other thing to note with this is also the last lunation within this astrological calendar. So, we've got our Gregorian calendar, which is January 1st till December 31st, which the patriarchy put us back into a long time, and we do not follow natural cycles with that. The actual true calendar that we would work with would be 28-day months, and we would actually have 13 months technically, but it got changed a long time ago. That's a whole nother call. And I do need to actually make a call about that at some point, which would be separate. But it took us away from observing and living life according to the moon cycles. And the moon really is who we are as an expression through the emotional body with spirit. I mean, farmers' almanacs used to always publish the moon cycles, and you would plant with moon cycles. Same thing would be true with anything else in your life. You would plant, hopes and dreams, wishes, whatever it is you want to create, and you'd work with the moon cycles for those things, because there were certain time periods that would be very beneficial for building and harnessing energy and creating, and then different moon times when you would go into the nurturing of that and growing it and doing, and of course, the harvesting, but then also the next part, which is the rest, the winter. And I mean, we really are coming out of the winter part of that, and those really follow more of the cycles, where spring is starting on March 21st. That's more really where we are at the beginning of our realities as far as the creation cycle in a year. So, and of course, if you're in the southern hemisphere, that would be the opposite. But we're really at a wonderful place of, it really is 0 point. And it's amazing how many of the astrologers are talking about, too, that this is, they call it a karmic 0 point, where we're just in nothing. And part of that is because it's the alpha omega point of Aries and Pisces. So as it goes back and forth between those realities, though, this is going to be, I mean, you may feel like you're constantly going between the old world and the new. It's really true. And it is the birth canal. In a lot of ways, we're birthing the new Earth. I mean, that's what's happening right now. They've talked about it before, but I mean, when you look at all the astrological things in play, it really supports that at this particular moment. There's also a planetary alignment that happens, I think, either tonight or tomorrow. I think 7 planets, objects that are all lined up together, visually, at least in the sky. And energetically, they also support each other, assisting us back and forth with, where we are, how we're creating, and things like that. So, for each of you, for each of us, we're invited to go in and just be in the 0 point, and don't look at creating your life based on something that's necessarily in your life now at the moment. What is something that you want to create, that you've always wanted to create? Maybe it's been sitting on a back burner. You've thought about it, but maybe the energy just wasn't there to create something that you really want. This is the time to let it sit with and be with and create it from its inception. I mean, obviously, if you had the idea, it's already there. And it's, as Anne would always say, Anne Ortley, she would say, if it's in your heart, it's in your chart. So, and again, for every person, that's going to be different. There's not a better than or less than, so don't even attempt to project a value in comparing it, or even wondering, will this be good for someone else or something else? Sometimes the journey is just an internal journey for each of us individually, and it has nothing to do with anyone else on the planet. Sometimes the work we came here to do is just on our core soul levels, and it has to do with cleaning out all of the ancestral inheritance, the karmic inheritances, and things like that. So this does not have to be some big, earth-shattering revelation or a creation, that you're going to share with the whole planet. I mean, sometimes it's so simple as just shifting you. Because if you can shift you change the morphogenetic field. It's the drop in the pond. It's the ripple. Change you. This does not have to be big. Some people articulate these things on larger, frameworks. And for some people, that's what they came here to do. do not compare yourself to something like that. This is not a comparison thing. This is not a test in that way. I think it is kind of it's a moment of time where we're being asked to step in the highest potentiality and work with spirit and the unseen world to create our highest potential of whatever that is. For most people, I think we're really cleaning and clearing and shifting our stuff. If we can do that, we've accomplished a lot. And sometimes we have to just start in those spaces. Now, you're going to have family and friends that if they're still just going through cause-effect reality and they're in constant reaction to their world, they're just not there yet. That's okay. You don't have to be in judgment of it. You don't have to be concerned about it. You don't have to worry about it. Let every single person be exactly where they are. It doesn't matter where they are. You cannot save someone else. You can't fix someone else. Those days are gone. We can assist to the extent that our heart is drawn to, if we have resources for this or that, whatever it is. But people, this really is the school of hard knocks. It comes to taking full and total responsibility for oneself and all of one's creations. This is where the rubber meets the road. It's where people have to get into their hearts. And we're invited to not be in shock when we watch other people or even ourselves go through a dark night of the soul. And I think this year and into next year, we're going to see a lot of the dark night of the soul. Because if people are not going into their conscious shifts and waking up consciously, they're going to bring external circumstances to take them into their hearts. And again, this is going to look unique for every person, but it's not just people. It's also groups of people. It's nations. I mean, Lord knows what this is going to look like with the United States. But there has to be the disintegration before we go into the new creations. You can't build the new earth we're doing, back into actual Christian awareness on the old rock. It just doesn't work. So even if you don't agree with something you see in the world, know, believe it or not, it's part of the plan, and those people are playing out their parts. I think that's the hardest thing to know. It doesn't mean that you have to sit back and tolerate being treated like a doormat. And this is also, I've probably mentioned this before, but the dynamics that are being set up right now are on purpose, and so many people are not taking their power. And the only way you take your power sometimes is to have someone come up against you and be just, screw you. I'm going to start screwing with your life. I'm going to take this away, take this away, take this away. At some point, you can only have so many things taken away from you before you do stand up for yourself. Again, this is individual and collective experiences. It will happen within family dynamics. It will happen with business dynamics. It will happen in towns, cities, states, and it's happening between countries. The hardest part to do is being in observance of everything that's falling apart and to not want to fix it. Many of the things that are falling apart, if you really allow yourself to feel into them, they have been methods of enslavement and control of individual humans as well as collective groups of humans for centuries. And sometimes you have to have the wrecking ball. And those wrecking balls have names. Sometimes you are the wrecking ball. Maybe you're going in and working with your family or something in a business dynamic that doesn't work. And you're saying, look, and you point out all sorts of specifics that you see. You're the one person that's unique to see a bigger picture. And sometimes that's your light. That's what's needed in your dynamic. It can be with family, friends, doesn't matter. It can be for your community. A lot of people, some people can be called to be community leaders, to be the shifters, to be the big picture people. Spirit's going to work with you. Some of you may have people that have passed on. You thought, I thought that person was still going to be here with me. Well, like for this, Judith's soul is working with me on all these calls. I know it because it's even in the astrology. Our named asteroids still come up together. And again, you're invited to go through and look at those things sometimes. And again, you can just go to astro.com and you can just pull up your information anytime. It's free. There's 25,000 asteroids that's down there that you can just pick and choose from, and just pick the names of the asteroids that phonetically sound closest to the names of whatever it is you're looking for. And you can see where they come up in your charts. Again, look for families' names, friends' names, your surnames, which is your last names. You can also look for cities and states. It's all there. It's shocking at how much this stuff comes up. Now, some of the stuff like New Orleans, I had to just pull up Orleans because there's not a New Orleans, but I think there's an Orleans or something like that. I think I've used for New Orleans before. And I'm trying to remember. I don't think Louisiana is there in itself, but there's some version I think I was using for that particular asteroid. But the point is, you can look for certain things, countries, continents. If you've ever thought about relocating to some place, you want to kind of check to see what the energy is for something like that. And I bring that up because we're in choice point time. And I don't know where each of your individual stories are, or whoever may be listening to the call in the future at different points. Y'all may, forward the link to this to somebody else that you think may find interesting. And if someone gets this and they think, oh, well, I'm thinking about moving somewhere, you can go and pull, things about a place you may be considering moving, or a couple of options, and see what's happening. You could also ask an astrologer what the aspects are and what those things look like, because some places, and they call this astrocartography, depending on the placements of when you're born, wherever you are in the world, there's an energy that's playing out there. And sometimes the energy is not as harmonious where you're born as to where you may want to move to. You may find that life is easier dynamically just by living at a different point, because the way the aspects are and the energy with your birth, believe it or not, there are places where we can be more comfortable. As I say that, though, you still have, and that's part of free will choice, but we still also have whatever karmic inheritance and genetic inheritance that we have to work through. So depending on where you are, the energy may shift in a bit, where perhaps things are not going to be as intense in another location on the planet as they are where you're born into. I'm not sure about how those dynamics necessarily work. I do know that we cannot necessarily just get rid of karma, or if there's stuff that we still have that's our stuff. I do think that part of conscious awareness, if we're being deeply immersed in our hearts and asking what our highest potentiality is, I do think that there are choices we can make that may make the journey a bit softened. In other words, we can probably clear out karma and circumstances from cause and effect reality in our past lives in ways that may not be as difficult. It doesn't mean that you're not still doing work and inner work. And part of it, I think, depends on how conscious you're working with your soul. And if you're really making an effort, and true change only comes within. And some people, they talk about change, but they don't really change. In other words, there's certain behaviors they don't give up. There will be certain family dynamics, so things that they continue to hold. And they talk about a good game, but they don't really make any shift. And so obviously Spirit observes these things and can work with you. And again, the external world is a reflection of us. As you change your frequency, that frequency must change and come meet you. It does. That's the law of divine physics, if you were. But it's divine expression. If you're living in your highest divinity, the highest divinity will come meet you. And again, it's not always on your timetable. And part of that has to, again, do with the inheritance. So another dynamic with this, too, so many people when they're younger, they are going to sometimes have an easier time early on, and then the soul goes through deeper soul work later on in life. That's not always true. Some people have a really difficult beginning of life and go into a much more graceful later years if they've been making more conscious choices. And again, that is not set in stone, and there's 8 billion ways to go back to God. So, I don't want to really place a value and pigeonhole anything in there. But the point is, that's just a couple of ideas that can give you an idea of where an individual is going to be working, as far as if they're having to work out karma in early life, transactions, or if they're working out later in life. And some people can have a wonderful life all the way to the end, and they end up, getting taken out with a car blowing up or something. I don't know. A train wreck, plane crash. I mean, you get all sorts of these things. And again, there's no rhyme or reason to any of that. Don't even attempt to understand it. The main thing is to know that we're always working along with our soul contract. That there is no other way. Now, many times we're operating in either denial of the soul contracts, or we're working in a way where it's like we see where Spirit has dropped us breadcrumbs and shown us a direction of which to start, working toward, but we choose to be in denial and then go the other way. And so we don't want to do that, because we're just creating more of the same, or more or less deferring, dealing with the karmic inheritance. And we really don't want to do that, because what's going to happen is you're going to blink and life's going to be gone. And at 57 years old, almost coming up this April, I mean, in some ways, there's so many things I thought, oh God, I thought I would have done this already. And I'm like, okay, I need to fit that in, And I think we're all being invited, no matter what your age. And most of us on this call, of course, I think are older. I know the bulk of you are, older than I am. And it doesn't mean that you haven't gone into deep progression of soul work. At the same time, there still are things you want to accomplish and do. I do think that technologies are going to make living life easier and healthier. It'd be nice if they would come out even faster than they are. I mean, a lot of things are changing. I mean, changing exponentially fast. So it's certainly my hope, that I'm working with Spirit to really bring those things forth for us, because, I mean, any assistance that we can get certainly is appreciated. But it's like, well, the point to this is, just because you may be a certain age, you may be in your 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, I don't know, I think maybe one or two in 80s on here on occasion. But it's like you're not your age. You're only as old as your heart feels. Doesn't mean the body has not been aging to an extent on an energetic level. I've known plenty of people here. I've even had family. They're in their 90s and they're still getting out and mowing yards and raking leaves and just doing huge amounts of things until they're not. But, I mean, we are getting more people trying to live into the 100. And that creates challenges, of course, because as we age in the physical, sometimes the heart and the mind are still set back here, like at a ripe 25 and 30-year-old with tons of capacity to create and think and do, but the body has gone through the aging process. However, some people can still get around pretty darn good. Some people have more physical workout routines to work with physical health. Some people are working more with food. And again, this is another part of our awareness. We really want to pay attention to food. Try to optimally sleep as good as you can, and more perfect in a perfect world, you'd be getting up with the sun and going to sleep with the sun, which I'm still not in line with yet. If that gives you the most exposure to vitamin D in the sun as much as you can. And you want to get that as naturally as you can. I mean, the synthetics, there's still just something I get with synthetics that just the body doesn't absorb it the same as it does with the sun. And of course, they were trying to keep us out of the sun forever, give skincare products that would create cancers, just awful. But as much as you can, you really want to be nourished by the sun. Water, the best quality water you can possibly get. If you can get filter systems, the bottled waters are not great because there's all sorts of nanoplastics that leach into the water. I used to drink them years ago just because they were easy and convenient. And in New Orleans, wouldn't drink the water in New Orleans, but I didn't have a water system or anything on the house. But the cleaner that you can do that as a water source, we really need to hydrate as much as we can. And I've certainly been working on that more and more. But everything, electricity really conducts through water, and our bodies are 70% water. And I don't know if y'all have listened to some of the interviews with Pam Gregory and Veda Austin, but Veda has done huge amounts of research into water and done the photography work with it and shows all the images that come up with water. And it really is amazing. The structuring of water, the vibrational frequency of the water, and what comes up in the expression of the water in geometry is really it's fascinating. So anyway, but and the Earth is 70% water, so it's really a perfect reflection that we are kind of in the same percentage water of the Earth. And because it does conduct the electricity, though, it really is very particularly specific as far as our function. Because as we continually accelerate all the plasma that's coming off the sun, all of the frequencies, the higher frequencies, are raising our vibrational frequencies to be in higher creation. So as we start working with that energy consciously, I think we start to balance out ourselves on the physical level, but not just there, but also emotionally and spiritually and mentally. And the more you can get away from all of the stuff that creates bad frequencies, like the 5G towers, if you can get as far away from all of the cell towers and stuff as you can, I think you're going to be better off. And I know that's not an easy thing to do, especially if you own a home in a certain spot. You don't necessarily move just because of that, but you can look on the internet to ask for ways to mitigate some of those frequencies and how they're going to hit you as far as maintaining health. But I mean, all these things, it's been a full-on assault on us. But I mean, as far as the bigger scale of energy picture, though, it's basically this whole thing going back into Pisces, which is taking us deeper into our connection to Source, to Mother, Father, God, to what does that look like? Who are you as an aspect of God? And really going into deep self-reflection, but also setting us all up to feel comfortable in creating again. And that's, I think, one of the biggest things we've lost sight of is how do we create? And part of it is through childlike innocence, not childish, but the really pristine innocence and awareness. And when you're in those spaces, you will create circumstances that reflect that. But you have to go in on the deepest part of your core. It can't be. I mean, Spirit knows the difference between if you're presenting something where you're acting like it, but you're not really embodying it. Some people talk about act it out until you become it. Just keep acting and you'll just be it. It's part of it, but not really, because if you're just acting it out, the Spirit knows the difference, and that's really betrayal of yourself, and you don't want to do that. It's hard to see ourselves as we are and not as we want others to see us or the way we think others see us. I mean, there's many different versions of our reality that we think is there, and of course ours is always one where we betray ourselves because we don't see it as we truly are. And that's a very deep myopathy that sometimes doesn't get fixed with glasses. Or as someone used to say, a cataract of the third eye. It was always one of the funnier versions of that. Actually, Robert, I think, had told Jude that one time. He thought he was having a cataract on his third eye. And everybody just loved that one. But anyway, so I hope that gives you guys a good idea and framework for the way the energy is coming in, what we're working with. Again, you've got all these planets that are working together. And the other thing is they're being aspected by Uranus, which is going into, let me see, one of them's going into Gemini, and one of them's going to Cancer. I think Uranus is going from Taurus into Gemini. That's what that is. And then Jupiter is going from Gemini into Cancer. So, those really are kind of big shifts. And of course, Pluto is just going into Aquarius. And so all of those are major aspects, which means that we're being worked on just hugely deep levels. So the main thing is, again, though, to know, to take away from all this, these eclipses are huge windows. They are paradigm shifting. They are literally taking us from one reality to another. And as far as a deeper function, this is really a chance, if you are not happy in something in your life, or you can share with family and friends. If they're not happy with something happening, this is when you ask for the change. This is when you can actuate something different. It's when you can really go through almost like looking glass technology, and really make a shift to something. Just go into your heart and ask, work with Spirit. And again, I always pull in, I ask for Mother, Father, God, I ask for the entire Archangelic Kingdom, I ask for every Ascended Master through Infinite Presence. I ask for the mighty Elohim, builders of form. They're the ones in charge of form, as well as the elemental kingdoms. Saint Germain and the Violet Flame will burn off all sorts of stuff. If you feel like you've got something in your heart and your soul that you just can't get to, or you feel like you're carrying something, it can be a little bitty thing. ask for Saint Germain the Violet Flame to go in and just burn that off, to transmute it for you. This is how we work with the unseen world. Ask for the diamond Christ light that can go in and crystallize anything that you're working with, and the 12th golden ray can just bring in that highest vibrancy of light. That's what all the things I've worked with, and I got all of those really from reading the books from Werner Schroeder, which really a wonderful set of teachings from, I'm trying to remember what the group was, some Mount Shasta, California is where they got channeled out of. But there was a book in there, Electrons and the Electron Kingdom, that I had bought. I bought a second copy for Jude to read too, and she thought, oh wow, that's just amazing. And I said, yeah, it was pretty powerful when I read it, because we start working with the electrons in a conscious way, and we're not taught to do that, and we don't think about that. So I'm trying to remember. Actually, let me go up there and look so I can tell y'all specifically, in case you want to get online and look and maybe even purchase some of the books here. What do we have here? These are all white bound books. I don't know if it's leather, almost like a leatherette maybe, but some white over here. Had to come to the bookcase. So the books that I had bought with this one was Thomas Prince's Private Bulletin, in the book of that. Okay, that's another big book. One of the books was called Man, His Origin, History, and Destiny, by Werner Schroeder. And let me pull the manifest to show you where the book's. Okay, so this is compiled by Werner Schroeder, as told by the Great White Brotherhood. So this is Ascended Master Teaching Foundation, and P.O. Box is out of Mount Shasta. Yeah. So if you go online and Werner Schroeder, Werner, Schroeder, Schroeder, he was the one that channeled and worked with most of this. But I mean, like this particular book really goes in and talks about the nature of God, our galaxy, creation of Earth, creation of man, the two golden ages, the fall of man, the consequences of the fall, the age of man, the Sanat Kumara that saves the earth, the Lemurian age, the Atlantean age, the Atlantean wars and the cataclysms, the golden age of the Sahara Empire, the Meru civilization, the Poseidonus civilization, and then the Plato accounts from Plato. And he talks about the time period from Poseidonus to Jesus, and then of course the life of Jesus and Mary during their times, and the time period of him till 1961 when they started doing all of their work. And then of course he talks about the New Age dispensation. So of course you had that New Age stuff coming along, and they talk about it from that standpoint. But then he talks about the destiny of man, in the galaxy, in the galaxy within humanity, God's messengers, and he talks about in here too I forgot about this, the nations of destiny. He talks about America, which was the Grail of Light, the other nations of destiny, the rising of Atlantis, future discovery of records, other predictions of masters. And that's really what's being activated in all this time period, because we're going to need more cosmic awareness and information to really go through our unfoldment. And I think a lot of things are going to come out from hidden, places where it's hidden. But anyway, so that was a very good book when I read that one. I forgot about that one. And then another one was The Seven Elohim Speak, Memoirs of Beloved Mary, Seven Archangels Speak. Oh, Electrons and the Elemental Kingdoms. That was the book that was really, it really took me into a place where Spirit showed me how we really are ruling the electrons, and everything's electronic. And it takes you into a deeper awareness of how to work with like animanton particles, because, I mean, really, in the truth of it, I mean, the electrons come through that. But, I mean, he describes the electrons, how they work, the atoms, the actual substance, the actual let there be light, the patterning, the streaming of the geometrical design. And he really goes and talks about the way that the light works through the heart with the electrons and how they're constantly streaming. Talks about the radiance, the way that works. They're all conductors of light. Let me see here. The qualification of the chi energy, and of course the life essence. Talks about the causes and the cores. Karma awaits its transmutation. I mean, it really goes into deep levels of our own awareness as electrons, and working with those. So again, those are great series of books. I mean, they've got several books that they published. There may even be up to like 40 books in that. But another series that Jude had and I bought to read, it's a series of 6 books. I think I mentioned them before, but these were Baird Spalding, B-A-I-R-D, Spalding, and it's Life and Teaching of the Masters of the Far East. And this was a 6-book series in a box set. But I mean, it goes in and talks about they're traveling, over in, Western teachers going over working with masters in the Far East, and really wonderful detailed accounts. And if you choose to, check those out, I think that they can help ground you into a little bit more of the understanding of how to connect with the unseen world and how to work with things like that. Another good author that I highly suggest is just buying anything Adyashanti. I mean, he can really strip away anything if you're feeling like you've got a stuck place somewhere or anything like that. I mean, reading anything Adyashanti just really breaks apart lots of stuff there. Anyway, so since I was over by the books, I thought I'd share those. So I mean, there's a lot of things out there that's very supportive for where we're going and doing, and so all right. Well, we are. I guess I've been going for about an hour. Wow. So I mean, that's I think what's happening in a nutshell. Again, this is the Pisces new moon. It's the new moon is the new beginnings, but this really is the opening of the whole eclipse window. So if we're consciously going in and clearing our own fields, which we're going to really work at here in a second, going back to 0 point, and it's 0 point with everything in your own life, whatever you're perceiving with your family, friends, whatever else, just let it go to 0 point. We are definitely in a place where you can't carry it. You don't want to carry any old energies from an old life into this new creation. This really is a portal. The great thing about this is, and I think this is the hardest thing for us to really know, it's already been created. It's already there. We're just becoming more conscious of it. But nothing can ever be created outside of our divinity and outside of our choice. Nothing happens to us by accident. There's always either an energy that we're still working with and clearing out, or that we're still trying to work and transmute in many different ways. The main thing is to own the totality of everything that's ever happening at any one moment of time. And I think sometimes that's a hard thing for us to accept, especially people that are going through challenges, or if there's something happened within your family dynamic that you wish wasn't happening. I mean, I certainly know I've got things I'm assisting people with, and I'm like, gosh, I wish we could get a break. and I work with, my family and friends and people, on a conscious level as much as I can. But sometimes you just can't create that shift, or it doesn't feel like you are. And of course, if you remember, the ones of you that had worked with Jude individually with things, she would, try to take us each into shifting something. And how many times would she work with us, and we'd be constantly going back session after session after session, and we'd feel like, oh, we just can't shift that, or can't get this one done, or something. And sometimes we do stay in the stuck points. But the hardest thing, I think, for any human is to release the hold that we have on something being real. And most of that has to do with the baggage we carry. I'm going through this whole thing right now, still trying to sort physicality out of this house. And sometimes it just feels like I'm moving concrete, huge boulders of concrete. And that concrete may be a piece of furniture over here, even a book, or just a little something, because it's got so much energy tied to it from the past or from someone or something. And I'm like, for everything, I have to look and say, who am I without these things? Who am I without that particular thing there? Who am I? If I release this stuff, who am I without that? And when my mom passed away, I did not realize energetically it all carried to me. Anything she carried, if the energy was in something, that energy just transferred to me because I was the owner at that point through default. And we don't think about the energy transmission of things like that. And that's one way that we are working with family and genetic inheritances, is when we have either homes passed down to us or other huge possessions. All of those things carry a frequency. And the more that we have ownership of, even through default, we may not have even wanted it, but we still have to deal with it energetically. It's one way that we work with our soul, the group souls, to clean things out. And so it's part of what's being, what Spirit calls being good stewards of Earth. Being able to work with our energy and what we have in the material world, because we can't take any of this with us, nor would we want to. So that's another thing. With this Venus retrograde, really look at your life and ask, do you need that anymore? I don't care what it is. It could be people, places, things. Do you value this anymore? And I think this is going to be part of our. It is. It's like going in and getting a master's degree with Spirit. And the thing with this, there's no right or wrong answers. Spirit's not coming back and telling you, oh, you passed this. There's no pass or fail. So it's really not like going and getting a master's or a PhD, and yet it is changing in frequency who we are as an awareness. And the higher we go, the more we go into the Godhead and into divine creation. So So on that note, let's go ahead and just go in on a deep soul cleaning and clearing, just to really set us up for this energy. And of course, we're all creating this energy together. I always remind everybody, I'm not doing this. All I am is a conduit for Spirit to come in and work with us on the group soul level on the call. But also, we're setting this call up for anybody that may listen to it at any point in the future. So, and again, we're always invited to ask ourselves, what is an eternal truth that is always true no matter what time period it is, what the circumstances are? Always ask yourself that in every question that you have in life. Is it an eternal truth, or is it a momentary truth? Momentary truth is only meant to bring you from point A to point B. And just because something is true for you today does not make it true tomorrow. What we're doing is releasing all momentary truth. We're getting to a place where we're just in the moment. And that truth is eternal all the time. And your mind may want to, place a value and judgment on that. Don't even try. You'll know in your heart what an eternal truth is. But it's really just presence. The main thing is just be here and attend whatever it is in your life. And eventually what you'll do is work through enough of the difficult, denser energies where you'll just move into a dharmic state. There won't be karma left, but you'll just be in pure dharma. And you'll be working with your own life force and whoever you're in and with, but you won't necessarily have to go through the trauma dramas more, additionally. And especially if what the astrologers are saying is true, that we really are going into 0 point. So if you're going into 0 point, you don't want to take your past with you. I don't care what it is. So that's one of the big things that that we're going to do in this meditation is really release any additional places where we're carrying an agenda. If we're carrying an old story or many stories, there's thousands of stories that we carry on the atomic and subatomic levels and the cellular structure that we don't even know are there necessarily, because we don't articulate anything about them, but it's part of the history. So we're going to go in and we're going to clear all of those things to set us up for the highest potentiality of creations within this eclipse window, to put us really in the best reality we can create. So, on that note, if you're not already hunkered down and laid up in a bed or on your couch or wherever, just get comfortable. And so we're just going to go in and really work with Spirit to do a deep clean. So just allow your heart to open up really deeply. If you go back and you look at time, and I don't always bring up the idea of referencing something in your past, but sometimes it's good to feel back to where things were. So imagine a year ago, that actually the first call we did was on March 25th with that eclipse. And so we're only about a month away from that. So imagine energetically how differently you are working with these telecalls. Go in and feel into either how much more grounded you feel, how much lighter you feel. What are the real palpable shifts that your own soul perceives that you've gone through? Now, for some of you, you may not perceive that much has shifted. If not, that's okay. Perhaps there wasn't as much that needed to be shifted. Perhaps there could be some places where you're either stuck or didn't want to go in and allow something to shift. So if there's places like that, ask Spirit today as we go in and do this work that that energy can go in and assist you and be shifted. Because we definitely want to be in a place of the highest amount of release from the past, but to be in a whole place of wholeness where we're healed. So let's just go in. Just a couple deep breaths just to really take you into your core. Wow, this is some really powerful energy today. I don't know if y'all are able to track the intensity of it. So some of you may experience a deep piercing feeling in your heart. And it will actually feel like a pierce. It's kind of like a very sharp pointed end of an instrument comes in and it just pops the heart open. It doesn't hurt, but it creates an opening for the everything that is to really permeate the heart. So just breathe in all of these adamantine particles. You should feel immediately so much lighter. you may feel yourself completely zoning out, and then your awareness will be brought to your body, and you'll feel like you've shifted timelines. And indeed, you are shifting timelines. If you have dynamics in your life with, it doesn't matter who it is, if you feel like you're at an impasse, let's ask Spirit to shift all of these things and take care of this for us as divine creation and assistance. The level and intensity of the light that's coming in with this particular healing journey and sequence is more vast than anything we've carried before. It's because the photonic energy has been ramped up to a point to awaken even the most sleeping and slumberous dynamics of the physical body, as well as all the other levels and layers of the bodies, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. And of course, the reflection is in the physical. This is truly lining us up with our divine blueprint. We've done this work in the past, but the frequency was never to this particular exponential rate. You may feel absolutely and completely exhausted after going through this work in the subatomic and atomic levels. So as we're in this energy, one of the ways that you can consciously work with all of this is to just go in with yourself and ask on behalf of yourself that Spirit will assist you in shifting anything that's standing between you and your highest potentiality. You can also ask to be aligned and to be shown the alignment in as much clarity as possible in coming along with your own divine purpose, whatever that is. as we did on the last call, we're going through vast amounts of soul retrieval. This is happening on the highest quantum level of awareness that your soul can take you on and allow the energy to come in and embody. These shifts that we're going through right now, all this energy that we're bringing in, is allowing for the deepest disintegration to happen of the old you, the old three-dimensional you, to allow for the particularization, particleization, that your DNA can handle this particular moment of time. We know that most of you are going way, way, way out right now. This is a soul retrieval that you've not been able to do up to this point. Because now you're pulling in every aspect of yourself that has ever wanted to come in for healing. You may feel so disoriented, and that's okay, that's a good thing. Allow for the disorientation. Just know that your soul always knows what it's doing. There are never any mistakes. Your soul and spirit has allowed for the highest particleization and centrifugal force to come in for the atomic and subatomic spin. It's remaking the core structure of how you are coming into the world as an expression, as a light expression. You may be feeling very otherworldly right now. And indeed, we are in a completely new vibrational frequency. You've allowed yourself to be shifted at the deepest core of who you are as an expression. And you've allowed for a very deep healing to occur that's going to allow you to initiate in your highest potential creations, whatever they are for you. I know that we're all in such deep appreciation for the attendance of all of us, because it is the continued group attendance that allows us to go in on these higher frequential levels and heal at the greatest capacity. When two or more are gathered, that is when we're able to do the highest amount of shift and creation. You're invited to stay in these frequencies as long as you can, to allow them to really permeate on the atomic and subatomic levels that allow for the molecular shift to happen. But again, in deep gratitude for every single one of you that have been able to come on and continue to assist each other as we each assist each other on the calls. Infinite love and many blessings to you all. Om Shanti.